We now know all 3 mobs that are going to be up for voting on Saturday at Minecraft Live. They are the Glare, the Allay and the Copper Golem. So which one is the correct one to vote for? Well, let's talk about each one in turn, talk about what might happen, speculate a little bit, and I'll tell you which one I'm going to go with. The first mob to be announced is this one. This is called the Glare. Now, how does this mob work? Well, this is a mob that you can pick up and take with you, so I'm not sure how to do that yet, maybe in a bucket, something like that. But what this mob will do is it will fly around and it will be attracted to dark areas. And in particular, if there's an area where it's light level 0, it will then have a grumpy face, maybe make a grumpy noise, and you'll know that mobs can spawn there. And of course, when we're talking about light level 0, that is from 1.18 and onwards, then light level 0 is where monsters spawn. So this will be a great mob to work out where you need to light up to stop mobs spawning. And where might we find this mob? Well, looking at it, it kind of looks like a bit like a bush, right? It looks like a leaf block. So where are there lots of leaves? Well, there are lots of leaves in a jungle, and it kind of looks like a jungle leaf to me. So I was thinking maybe we could find these things in the jungle somewhere. And then I was thinking, well, how about if we find them in a structure? Because what you can do now is we can find them maybe inside the jungle pyramid, which is this one right here. Now, this hasn't been updated for a very long time, hasn't really been any changes. But what if we found the jungle temple here? We hopped inside, and of course, inside here it is in fact dark, so this would make sense that we'd find it in a dark place. And maybe once you've beaten the booby trap that's here, maybe it's over here somewhere where this chest is. Maybe it's kind of hanging around here, and this is where you can scoop it up in a bucket maybe, and then take it with you for use, where you need it. And I can certainly see this being useful. Imagine we're going around and we're caving, we're lighting up as we go. We want to make sure that we're safe. So as we go deeper and deeper, we're not going to have mobs coming back behind us and surprising us. But of course here, it could be quite easy to miss a few blocks here and there. And then mobs can spawn and then come after us and we won't even know. But if we've got our glare with us, then we can release them from the bucket maybe, and then they can fly around and just make sure that we're safe, make sure we're lighting up the caves as we go. I can also see the glare being useful when it comes to lighting up your base area. So imagine I've taken over this village, maybe I've added a wall all the way around the outside to stop mobs getting in, but to stop mobs spawning inside here, we need to make sure we've lit up all the area. So here you can see I've added some torches here and there, but I don't know if I've got every single block. There might be the odd block here and there that I've missed, and of course that's when monsters can spawn. They can come after me or my friends, the villagers, which is no good. But with our friend the glare, they can fly around, maybe spot dark spots on the roof over here that's not so easy to see. Maybe there's the odd block on the floor I've missed, so that will make sure that we can get our base all nicely lit up and safe from those baddie mobs. Now when it comes to redstone and contraptions, there could be a use for it, because you could obviously control lights with redstone, and maybe you could get the glare to fly here and there and control the lights to control that. Maybe that could be useful for something. Not quite sure what just yet, maybe a timer, that kind of thing, but who knows. So I think certainly an interesting mob, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that one pans out. The next mob to be announced is this one. This is the Allay. Now this is a flying mob, kind of looks like a fairy, but also maybe a cousin of the Vex. So that's kind of in keeping with the mob we've already got. And how the Allay will work is it will interact with note blocks, and also you can give it an item and it will fly around and try and find items of a similar type that are around on the floor. So this won't be duplicating any items, that kind of thing. But if you've got blocks dropped on the floor, it will pick them up and then come and either bring it to you, the player, or if there's a note block nearby, it will come and drop it off at the nearest note block. Where might we find this Allay? Well, maybe in the forest. There was a forest in the video. Maybe we could find it in the flower forest. That feels like a good fairy type biome to find this thing in. And of course, it looks like a Vex. So we'd be flying around. We'd be walking around here, and we'd see it flying around, obviously without a sword, and look very menacing, but obviously look a bit cuter than that. But yeah, we'd find the Allay over here in the flower forest. Maybe that would be super cool. And then maybe we could either tame it with something, or we can scoop it up in a bucket, or some other way to bring it with us, because obviously we want to bring that along with us as being a friend of ours. Maybe it won't go through blocks like the Vex does, but maybe it does. Maybe that could be actually quite useful if it flew through blocks. If it's a fairy type, a magical type mob, that would be quite cool. But yeah, let's talk about how it might actually work. Once you've found your Allay, how do you give it an item and that kind of thing? So maybe it could work similar to a villager. So likewise, we have a villager here, and we can put down a workstation, and the villager will look at it and then walk over to it in a second. So maybe this could work the same way for the Allay. Maybe I'll put down a note block, and then the Allay will come over to it, and then he's ready to then receive an item, and then that is his note block. Maybe it could work something like that. So maybe we'll come up to this guy. Maybe you can then right click on the Allay. Maybe there's an interface here where you can give it the item. That's the item I want the Allay to go and collect. Obviously this is a villager, but we're just pretending this is an Allay, and maybe it stays in his inventory here, so you can always click on him and see what what item he has programmed. The other thing is sometimes with these villagers, they will show items here that they have for sale. So they hold either an emerald or whatnot. So maybe the Allay, if you come up to it, maybe it will hold the item in front of it, so you don't have to click on it to see what it's programmed to. And of course, if we do this kind of pairing with blocks, the same way we do villagers, maybe this is a note block in the Allay's case, and maybe it's, you know, maybe we've released it over here. Here's our Allay. So maybe it will go over to this note block, maybe sit around it. It'll give us those green sparkles that a villager does when it gets paired with a workstation. So then that way we know that when this Allay goes off and finds some items, it will drop it at this note block. So that means we can have lots of these note blocks around and program each one of them to have a different Allay. Maybe that would be quite cool, quite easy to do, and also use mechanics that we're already used to in the game. That would be quite easy, I think. And then in terms of picking up items, so imagine we've given our Allay this tulip. What would happen then is we'd need to have a bunch of these around the world, just kind of on the floor. So if imagine we have a whole bunch of these on the floor, the Allay would fly around here, pick them up, and then bring them back over to the note block. Or if there's no note blocks, it will bring them over to the player. I think that's how it's going to work. But the thing here is, I've asked on Twitter, what about non-stackable items? And I guess from that we can work out how many items it would actually pick up. So King B Dogs, I asked him the question, what about non-stackable items? And he said that the Allay will pick up non-stackable items. So let's say we had maybe a boat over here, or maybe a chest plate or a sword, that kind of thing. Maybe we can add books on the floor. It will pick those up and then drop them over, but it will only pick up one of those at a time. So that leads me to believe, this is obviously a guess here, we don't know for certain, that the Allay will only pick up one stack of an item at any one time. So if it's a normal non-stackable, if it's a normal stackable item like this tulip, maybe it will pick up 64 items and then come over and drop them off. If you drop something like a snowball, it will pick up 16 items and then come and drop them off. If you give it a non-stackable item like a book or a boat, that kind of thing, it'll pick up one of those items and then come on off and drop it off. Now that means that we can potentially sort some items we couldn't sort before. Now how this might get more complicated is, what about if you want to tell the difference between different non-stackable items? So what about books? What about if I've got a mending book or a sharpness book? Would it be able to just pick up the mending books if there's a mixture of different books on the floor? That would be quite cool. Really good way to sort books out of, you know, when you've got your villager system, maybe you want to be able to sort books, that kind of thing. But then it gets more complicated. What happens if a book has got both enchantments? How would that work? So maybe that's taking it a bit too far. Maybe it's getting too complicated. But if we can pick up non-stackable items, then this can certainly be used as a way to sort items that we couldn't sort before. The third and final mob is this one. This is the Copper Golem. So this is a mob that you can construct yourself out of some blocks. We'll talk about that in a minute. And this mob will randomly press copper buttons. So that'll be a new block in the game, a copper button. We'll talk about more of that in a bit. But yeah, so it'll randomly press these buttons, but also this Copper Golem, just like normal copper, will also age. And eventually it will turn that kind of greeny color and then shut down and become a statue. So what you can do with that, we're not sure yet, but that is how the Copper Golem works. So how might we construct a copper golem? Well, we've already got two golems in the game. We've got the iron golem, which you build like this, and a snow golem you build like that. So we've got some options here. Now, I suspect that it's not similar to the iron golem, because in that video the copper golem looked pretty small. Looks about the same size as a player, if not a little bit smaller even. So what it could be is a copper block, and I was thinking because there's an antenna on the top, maybe there's a lightning rod on the top of that. But I think lots of people might actually use this already in their builds. That looks like a pretty common combination to have. So I suspect it'd probably be something like this, and then maybe that on top. Maybe those three blocks. So we have the carved pumpkin in there to make sure that it's not something that's used commonly in our builds. So that kind of, we use that pumpkin already for the other kind of golems, and then having the lightning rod on top gives it something a little bit unique, and that is the antenna. So that's what I'm guessing is going to be the build. It might not be that at all, but yeah, that's my guess. So that's pretty good. Now, what can we use this copper golem for? Well, once you've got your copper golem walking around, it will randomly press copper buttons. Now, we don't have copper buttons in the game just yet, but we do have acacia buttons. They're pretty similar in color. If we put a copper block next to it, pretty similar in color. So I think if you're thinking about this from a decorative point of view, we've already got these buttons, so I don't think that's going to add that much to the game. What it could do potentially, though, is because we have wooden buttons and stone buttons, and they emit a signal for a different length of time. If we add a copper button, maybe that adds a third length of time. So that could give us another option in terms of redstone. So that could be quite useful. The other thing then is that the copper golem will walk around and then randomly press these buttons. So that will give us a way to randomly give us signals. Now, we already have ways to do that already with various redstone signals, and it's pretty easy to do that. I mean, I can show you a super simple one right now, in fact. How about this? Get a sapling, put a block on the top, and then get an observer to look at it. And whenever that sapling tries to grow, it won't be able to because of the block on top, but you will in fact get a signal out the back. So that is a randomizer, very simple, only a couple of blocks, and that gives you, you know, a good length of time in between pulses. So not quite sure how often the copper golem will go around pressing these buttons, but of course the other thing is it will decay over time and then it will turn into a statue. So if you're using this as a randomizer, it will only work for a certain amount of time and then it will stop. Now with the normal copper, we can wax it, of course, and then we could also scrape off oxidation. Maybe you could do that as well with a copper golem to repair it. I mean, we can repair iron golems if they get damaged, so maybe we can do that with the copper golem as well, but then that's a manual bit of input. So I think the copper golem is interesting, but yeah, not my favorite so far. So what is my favorite mob of the three? Which am I going to be voting for? Maybe I should rank them in order of which ones I would vote for. So I think the one I'd put into third place, I think, is got to be the Allay. I think that guy is interesting, and I think it would be good to have in the game anyway. But I think that's probably the least most interesting mob out of the three. So looking around, looking for dark spots, that's definitely useful. That would be definitely useful in the game. It means you won't have to look at your F3 screen that much. So it keeps you in the game that a bit more. So I think that's definitely useful. But I think that's probably the third in the list, even though it is good, even though it is a good mob. Second of all, I think is going to have to be the copper golem. I think the thing with that is it'd be good to get copper buttons in place. That could give us some options with timings and things like that, and this could be good to have some life around your base, that kind of thing. But then again, it's not that useful, I don't think, because we've already got circuits that can do randomization, that kind of thing, and control signal length. So not too interested in that one, I don't think. I think the one I like the best is the cousin of the Vex, the Allay. That one is going to be super cool for giving life to your base. You could have it in your base anyway if you want to add some life to it, and it can sort of fly around. You can have dispensers just dropping out items and getting it to pick them up just for aesthetics and adding some life. So it could cover the kind of bracket that the copper golem does, and also it's going to be super useful for potentially for sorting items, collecting items from mob farms. That'll give us some extra options when it comes to that kind of thing. So I think these have got the most chance of being interesting and giving us something new in the game. So what do you think? What is your favourite out of the three? The Allay, the Allay, and the Copper Golem. Which one are you going to vote for? And what do you think? So get your comments in the description below. Let me know what you think. I think this time around, I want to commend Mojang for giving us 3 unique mobs that are actually all good. I think in previous votes, we've had a reskinned cow and we've had a reskinned squid. And, not super interesting in my opinion. But these 3, they've really nailed it this time. They've given us 3 votes. And now, three unique mobs, should I say. And now it's really hard because we got 3 good mobs. And actually I'd like to have all of them in the game actually, but if you've got to pick one, then my favorite is going to be the Allay. So anyway, Minecraft Live is going to be this Saturday, so keep your eyes on the YouTubes and the Twitches. There'll be people streaming that, and there'll be videos, of course, so keep your eye on that. There are going to be announcements about 1.19 as well. So what are your recommendations or guesses for what's going to be in 1.19? I'm going to go for the obvious. I think probably an end update makes sense, but I've also heard rumors that maybe there's going to be a 4th dimension. Yeah, let's see what happens. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please hit the like button, and if you're new, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you again next time.